Morning. I sent a photo for this week if you want to look at it if you're choosing to pull that out now. I thank the Lord for, I don't know where y'all about around y'all's houses, but man, we got some heavy rain. And thank the Lord coming through it. It's interesting how once you've survived something in the past, it can be a little stressful when I don't know if I've ever thought much about rain before, maybe at different times, and there's other reasons I do now besides just that former hurricane. I thank the Lord for keeping us through the night. I appreciate His goodness. I think in some places it's been pretty bad, like airlifting people hit pretty hard. I hate that. But if you want to look at the photo real quick, I think we'll say a word of prayer before I begin the lesson. Just ask for the Lord's guidance. Thank you, Lord, for your blessings through the night, that we were able to be up and about this morning for the beauty of a new opportunity to come and give you thanks. Pray you'll bless the lesson. I am nothing. I am less than nothing. But I pray for your help and guidance and for each person here and as the service proceeds. Amen. If you look at the photo, what's it now? Kind of look at it before, I'll see what you come up with. What is there's some differences, some key differences between the before and after. So look at it just a second. And I hope it kind of stands out. We'll give everybody time. Look at the difference between the before and the after. Somebody from this side, all two of you. No, anything you notice? Now, I'm right-handed, so you have to be careful. I know this sounds silly, but as an instructor, you can favor the side you write with. Isn't that funny? But you can favor the side because that's where you tend to.
Students on the left, on the right, are paying attention.
In the second one, they're paying attention. Anybody notice something different in this one?
There's two students sitting in the aisle on the first picture, and one extra student on the front row of the picture.
Okay, so maybe somebody came in late. What were you going to say?
The closer the teacher got, the more.
Oh, yes. Very good. So the kids quit talking, and most likely why? The teacher got close. This is approach of classroom management. Last week, I referred to some stuff. I'll model it. It's a classic. We use it a lot, or I do. It is called proximity control. It is amazing what your presence does, just as the instructor. Now, I'm a big old man. I have to be careful with the grades I teach because, especially in 7th, they're afraid. They've never had a male teacher, and then they see me. And I'm very unbackward with my students, if that's even a word. But sometimes just give them the stink eye. You walk up close, and they just stop. I didn't have to do anything, nothing major. But you would call that, and I know it's just a simple concept. It's called proximity control. The closer you are to the individuals who are struggling to do what's appropriate, guess what becomes less likely? They struggle to be inappropriate. Just by being close in your presence, it can take away some of the temptation, or it takes away opportunity for them to act inappropriately. It's such a simple concept, isn't it? I'm sure as parents you did that. If you heard noise in the room, I'm sure you picked your own corner. And once the kids saw your face, most likely they may have stopped whatever they were doing, at least for that moment, because they know that you were listening. But last week I mentioned, and this just kind of fascinated me a little bit, thinking about classroom management strategies, and I know that's very much a realm of my job, but to use it as an analogy to help people. It helps in the classroom, of course, maintain order, but in essence, it's helping the students. In essence, those strategies are there to help the kiddos. And the number one strategy, and I was just curious, and I've already quizzed my wife just to see, because, I don't know that this specific thing would have sunk in. And if you're like me, I can do a lesson. I have had, Brother Mike Wilkes was so kind. He came up to me once and he said a phrase and looked at me like I knew exactly what he was talking about. And idiot me was like, And I can't fake it. And I was like, the library card. And apparently I did a lesson using the library card as an analogy when he was here once, which I appreciate he remembered. And after he mentioned it, I kind of remembered, but this doesn't always pop in my head. So no judgment from me if you can't remember from one time to the next. But there is number one strategy. Proximity control can be a part of that, but it's a blanket thing that helps with everything. Classroom management, instruction, everything. And I discussed it last week. Does anybody remember what it was? Say that again. Respect. Okay. You can gain respect if you have this. Eye contact. That can help. I guess. I mean, that can certainly, you look at somebody, they know that you've got their attention. You may remember? My wife can't answer. I've already quizzed her. She danced around it with what she said. Do you remember what you said? Build relationships. That is the number one thing that anybody with any sense who's taught for any amount of time that actually wants to do their job well, as far as my career. Those of you in management and working over people may have that same, I would assume, same strategy. But you build relationships. Nothing replaces building relationships with others. As far as a classroom teacher, that's what I put it most in perspective with. And that's what I've learned this coming year, God willing, will be my 26th. It is the number one strategy, the number one thing that will help you not only just manage the classroom better, but it helps you relate and build better practices with your instruction because the kids listen, because you have built a relationship. Nothing replaces that. But most importantly, when people are struggling, when someone's having trouble, if I have built, and I think I'm using the kids as an analogy, but I want to use this as a way to think about trying to work with people just in the world that we live in, working with individuals that we care about or that we encounter or that we would hope to see build a relationship with the Lord or a better relationship. But when people are struggling, they are more likely to be open to listening. They are more likely to be open to hearing advice that could point out a need. And they're more likely to continue seeking guidance when they're struggling if they feel a relationship. And I know that's such common sense, isn't it? That just seems so basic. But do you know how powerful that can be in my job? It can turn an entire environment of a classroom around if you just build a strong relationship. Because the opposite is also true. I have learned in life, if people do not feel a connection, if people do not feel a relationship, do you know what they're often tempted to do? They close themselves off. They say thanks, but no thanks. Because they're just not going to listen. They don't feel a closeness. They don't feel a relationship. They don't feel a connection. There's nothing there that's going to harmonize with them. I don't do music. But when something's in harmony, it sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Yeah. But you throw me in there, it's not going to have the same ring. Well, the same thing happens when a relationship is severed, or when there's an inability to build it. There's no harmony. It doesn't feel or act the same as someone who can build a strong relationship. And those things apply across in life. That's why I feel like I can use it. Because this is the truth too. I can tell you in a classroom setting, there's not the right relationship, and you can try, and there's not always a connection. People are still human. But you can harp at somebody, you can fuss at somebody, you can all but shake them. And guess what changes? Almost nothing. Nothing. There's almost no help. Harping, fussing, you just want to slap them. And almost nothing will change if the person, unfortunately, doesn't feel a connection or a relationship. And so that was kind of my analogy of building the need, and as I seek as an individual, hoping and searching to find opportunities to build relationships with, I don't have to know someone well to care about their soul. I think all of us, hopefully, would feel some degree of that. This week, I want you to think about the photo that you pointed out the differences. The two key ones. Kids stop talking because teacher moved closer. That is just kind of often, if people have any social awareness, that's kind of common sense, isn't it? In the sense that kids know, they're close to me, I better stop. Or they're going to talk to me personally. Now, you still have some who don't have that sense yet. The only thing needed for that instructional facilitator or that teacher to stop those boys from having a sidebar conversation was to move towards them. Did the children move? No. Who had to do the moving? The one who needed to establish the relationship. He is the one who had to do the moving. And I think about that. I think about, people won't always come, but I can do my part to move toward. I can do my part to move forward. It's evident, and this I think is an interesting, when I think about it, his simple presence elicited a measure of respect from the boys because they stopped and changed their focus. Just simple presence. All he did was move the proximity of the kids, that he was present. And they were stopping what they were doing, and they refocused what they were doing. And they changed their behavior. The facilitator used something so simple. He moved closer to the concern. But often, what is the temptation to do when there is a concern? Often when there's troubling situations, or when you're faced with potential trouble, what is it tempting to do? Avoid. And avoidance is not a successful strategy for anything. Avoidance often just is a breeding ground for trouble to get bigger. I can tell you, if you avoid confrontation in your classroom, if you avoid dealing with something that necessitates classroom management, you're gonna have a hard time. It will spread like wildfire. If you think, if I ignore it, it'll stop. No, sometimes things do. You got to use a measure of wisdom. But some things, Children test the water. Is he going to say anything? Can I get by with this? I mean, they're just kids. That's what they're supposed to do. And to a degree, they're learning boundaries. But avoidance is not a solution to anything. It is tempting to avoid. It's tempting. I think this is funny too. If you've ever been in a work environment where this happens, you ever had a boss who doesn't want to directly address something, so they talk around the situation? They talk around it. You have a massive faculty meeting, and they discuss the concern, and everybody's sitting there thinking, that's 2 people. There are 48 of us in this meeting. You're talking about the 2 that everybody knows. I mean, I'm not being ugly, but I'm being truthful. I mean, you can do that in the classroom too, but what's easier to do? Talk to the whole group, then go to those 2 people. Sometimes that's easier. The sad thing is the ripple effect of that is, a very strong leader told me this, that she either read it or heard it at a conference, or at a presenter. When someone addresses an entire group, rather than addressing an individual, like at work or on the job, let's say, everyone who's not doing it becomes paranoid. Am I doing something wrong? And they get nervous. And the 2 people that were supposed to hear it, I'm not the only one. And they get emboldened. And often they get worse. Often they'll do it more. Because, I mean, that's true. That's what they said. I mean, that's just a strategy. It is tempting to avoid things. It's tempting to talk around them and never fully address them. As a teacher, this is funny. I might discuss concerning behaviors with 2 or 3 kids in mind. And when you're first learning a group, there's an appropriate place for everything. I mean, there's no absolutes, and there's nothing that absolutely works with every group, every time, all the time, trust me. Building relationships always helps. Now, that is a constant tried and true. I just have found it to, research shows that, I mean, it's just common sense. But I can discuss something with a class, and it concerns 2 or 3 students. And sometimes that's appropriate as a general warning. But there are times when everybody in the room knows, because you can watch children, they're not subtle. And they turn and stare at them. And it becomes even more awkward for the one you're talking about, right? Because everybody knows it's them. Do you know what would be simpler? And now, trust me, I'm old. I'll do this. It'd save everybody else's time if I just talked to those 2 or 3 kids. It would save my class time, wouldn't it? It would preserve my instruction. It would preserve my ability to move forward, to continue on with class. But if I don't have a relationship, and here's where the struggle comes, I know as a classroom teacher, I don't enter the fields that y'all do. It's hard when you don't have a relationship with the 2 or 3 that are the most struggling. Those are often the 2 that might be the hardest to build a relationship with. So it's just so much easier. Well, I covered it. No, I talked around it. I didn't cover nothing. Because guess who's probably not listening anyway? With the attentive ear they need, those 2 or 3. Or they're looking at each other grinning because they know it's them. And they like the negative attention. It emboldened them sometimes. It's just easier to talk around them or about them and their behaviors rather than address them. And this is what I think about. It's funny. Jesus was not afraid to get close to people of concern. Have you ever thought about that? As far as, he's not a classroom manager, but he was managing his situation, that he came to let people know he was there to offer them salvation with his sacrifice. So who did he often interact with? Probably some of the most challenging. Because who did he, if he had only met with those who were most interested and most concerned, or most fascinated with him, then there's a whole group of people he'd have never encountered. And if he'd only waited for them to come to him, they'd have never heard his message. So it's interesting to understand, Jesus used proximity control. He made himself available and in the midst of sometimes the people of greatest concern. People, and this is, I think, also too, I can't always view people as a project to be managed. People are human beings. People have feelings. When you are involved in work and you have a project and a deadline, my wife deals with budgets. That's fairly black and white, but even in the realm of money, they have room to interpret, because the person in charge can say, we're allowed to do this, this, and this within these guidelines. So she may have money to appropriate, but with change in leadership, that can be appropriated differently. And guess who's not going to interpret that the same way when they were under a different leader? The workers. Because they're going to view it as, why is this change necessary? Why are they going to view it that way? You would think, well, it's money, he has said this, this, and this. But people are not projects, are they? People aren't little projects or minions that can always be managed. They are human. They are fallible. They have struggles. They have feelings. They have emotions. So often they are individuals who need to be worked with, not necessarily controlled and managed.
Right.
Now, as a teacher, I have the duty of classroom control because they are not adults. When I go to a faculty meeting, I'm not in teacher role. Those people surrounding me are not my subordinates. I have no authority. I am not in charge. I don't insert myself in that role. Therefore, those things I respect fall to my principal, who does have an authority over me. So I get that there's authorities and there's things in the world. I understand that and very deeply respect it. But people, rather, they are individuals with interests. They're individuals with struggles. They're individuals with habits. They're individuals with real lives who just, what is the number one thing everybody wants to feel? Like they matter. So the reason I referenced building relationships as an analogy for managing situations or people that we encounter in life, people just first of all want to know that they matter, that they're cared about. Because they know, listen, there are kids that go through the school day, they know they don't matter. I mean, I'm just going to be very blunt. They know that if they're quiet and they keep their head down, nobody will ever say their name. Nobody will ever draw attention. They could be absent, and they may even not know or wonder, does anybody even notice if I'm not there? Because they're not stupid. They know where they are on the hierarchy of what matters with people, don't they? Kids aren't dumb. Okay, and as adults, we know that within our workplace sometimes. You can feel, well, I rank way below, I feel like I rank way down here. Jesus drew near and built relationships, and then he spoke the truth to people. And there are some examples I want to read, especially one in particular that touches my heart, that makes me think about proximity control, the ability to be present. And I'll read it in, Lord willing, a little bit later. In Matthew 9, if you wish to look there, 10 through 13. Matthew 9, 10 through 13. And it came to pass, as Jesus sat at meat in the house, behold, many publicans and sinners came and sat down with him and his disciples. Look who came to be with Jesus. And when the Pharisees saw it, they kind of got high and mighty, didn't they? They said unto his disciples, why eateth your master with publicans and sinners? But I love what Jesus said. When he heard that, he said unto them, they that be whole need not a physician, but they that are sick. Do you know the easiest students to manage in your classroom? The ones that ain't got no discipline problems, duh. They don't need management. They manage themselves quite effectively. They listen, they're respectful, they don't talk back, they don't talk over, they don't talk through. They do everything they're supposed to. Therefore, they don't elicit the same need. as kids who need help. There are people out there who need help. There are people who need to know Jesus is just as much for them as the ones that seem to have it all together. Jesus isn't just there for the people who seem to have everything and all their ducks in a row. He's there for the one who is struggling or who may struggle for a while. He's there because he cares. But go ye and learn what that meaneth. He made himself present. When they came in his proximity, he didn't get up, I don't know about this. What are other people going to say? Well, you know what? I understand there's a level of it matters what people think. I certainly understand that. But there's also a level of it that can become very controlling and very demeaning because we can exclude those who need us most. But go ye and learn what that meaneth. I will have mercy and not sacrifice. For I am not come to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance. You walk by a classroom. And this can happen, especially as they get in higher grades in high school in particular. There are kids who choose to take certain classes. I mean, there are classes that are so mature in high school. Maybe they're AP this or AP that. You could have the adult leave the room and they would almost carry the class. That's comical. Now, someone walk in that room, they think, man, this teacher's got it together. Duh. They don't need management. They don't need that. Go to the one where it's a struggle. Go to the one with a higher dose of reality. They are the ones who need attention and proximity and help. Jesus didn't remain distant from broken people. And that's hard. Some situations are very hard, and not every situation is for us to tackle. There are people with issues and struggles that really would not be my calling to address. But I pray people can find the ones who can help them. There are some things that may be out of my purpose and usage by the Lord. But I do appreciate he intentionally went where the people were. He went to them. Proximity control. In Luke 19, I'm going to very quickly, I want to read pretty fast. Now watch me fumble over every word. It'll turn into like, oh, can you just summarize it? Okay. But Luke 19, 1 through 10, Zacchaeus. And Jesus entered and passed through Jericho, and behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus who was the chief among the publicans, and he was rich. And he sought to see Jesus, who was and could not for the press, because he was little of stature. And he ran before and climbed up into a sycamore tree to see him, for he was to pass that way. And when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and saw him and said unto him, Zacchaeus, make haste and come down, for today I must abide at that house. And he made haste and came down and received him joyfully. And when they saw it, they all murmured, saying, oh, look who Jesus is hanging out with. And he made haste and came down and received him joyfully. And when they saw it, they all murmured, saying that he was gone to be guest with a man that is a sinner. And Zacchaeus stood and said unto the Lord, behold, Lord, the half of my goods I give to the poor. And if I've taken anything from any man by false accusation, I restore him fourfold. And Jesus said unto him, this day is salvation come to this house, for so much as he also is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man has come to seek and to save that which was lost. Jesus came to offer his presence, not to be affected by the presence of others, but to institute change. To institute through his presence the ability for people to recognize there's a better way. And he couldn't do it without proximity control, putting himself in their presence. Zacchaeus sought to see Jesus, and Jesus had a life-changing impact on his existence. And when I read this, it made me question myself when I was preparing this lesson. Do people seek me because they see Jesus in my life? Zacchaeus sought out Jesus. He wanted to see him so badly, he climbed a tree. And Jesus did not rebuke him, but instead he invited him. He understood there was a need there and a desire. Does my presence cause them to desire to know more about Jesus, I say I love and I say I serve? Does my presence elicit that? Because in the presence of Jesus, Zacchaeus knew enough to say, hey, had Jesus really said that much to him other than come down? And he starts saying, look, I've been doing this and this and this. The sheer presence of Jesus elicited a change in Zacchaeus, didn't it? He was willing to share what he had been doing. And there'll always be scoffers. There'll always be mockers. But is that who we want to focus on? Is that who you want to let be the driving force behind what you choose to do and choose to say? Those who will scoff at you and mock you? I had a young teacher. She left after she had her baby. She did not return from maternity leave. And please, I don't share this. I just realized when I share it, I don't want it to be misconstrued. And so I hope you would know I don't mean it that way. But I ran into her and she was talking to me. I loved working with her. She was good to the kids. But she had her first baby and she decided not to return to work. Now she's pregnant again and she's decided, I need to return to work. I think she needs the structure of that work day and so forth for her own happiness. And good for her if she needs that. But she said something that made me very sad. She said, you know, I talk to people and they say to me, and this is a sad reality in my job. This is just true. I mean, it is true. People say to me, I wish I had left sooner. She goes, but then I run into you. And y'all, I love it. I've loved it for this will be 20. I about choke up saying that to you. I just do. I just love it. And she to me has potential and she is good to the children. You know what? She has a choice. There'll always be those who, for their life, scoff and mock, but they don't necessarily mean it badly. But she can't make that judgment for herself based on this. She's got to decide, and I hope really seek what will be the opportunity, what will be best for her situation. There will always be scoffers and mockers, but this is what I don't want to do. I don't want to add fuel to their already flaming fire because I lack the ability to simply be close. I lack the ability to simply be present, to simply be there and build relationships with the people who may desperately be seeking it most. There will be those who don't always maybe look the most interested, but sometimes you can be quite surprised at what they're open to. Jesus sought to help those who were in need. Did everyone want and accept his help? Did it stop him? Of course not. Of course not. We'll encounter the same situations, but I cannot make excuses for myself if I'm failing to be who I need to be in front of and with others. I can't do that. I can't make those excuses as a classroom teacher, and it makes me realize as I reflect, I can't do that as a Christian either. If I'm not being who I need to be, making myself present, or building the relationships with others that I need to build, that's on me, isn't it? I can't put that off on other people. As a teacher, I can just tell you, I can't speak for your jobs. I've just done this career mostly. It's easier to say things like this. Well, they don't want to behave. That can be true. It's more fun to misbehave for some children. That makes their day much more interesting. It's easier to say they just don't care. Maybe true. Maybe they haven't found a reason to care about what they're doing. It's easier to say my job is to teach and I shouldn't have to deal with these issues. It would be much easier if I didn't. That would be great if the world was that way. So there's levels of truth to all those statements, but there are often, however, much deeper issues with kids who seem to give adults a problem. Who is it easier to blame every time? The kid. But often, if I'm being honest, and I think about people you seek to build a relationship with, or you pray about, you pray for, you pray about, however you want to say it, often there may be a deeper issue. And sometimes the deeper issue with a kid, guess what? Is the adult. It's not the kid. And yes, I said that out loud because it's true. I reflect back on my years of teaching and I can say, I was the biggest part of that problem. Now that I reflect with years of experience, I was the one who was the biggest problem in the situation. I'm just being honest as I reflect back. I can name him. I won't, since this is live. I can name him. I will probably never forget him. And I realize now I was probably the biggest part of the problem. I can witness adults being the problem with some students, but if adults do not self-reflect, if I don't self-reflect, and I don't own that they are I am part of why the relationships are not being successful, then I fall prey to just making lame excuses and blaming everybody around me. That's what it's easier to fall prey to. You've that worked on jobs where a management isn't doing their job, let's say, but they blame all the work. That can happen, right? But sometimes it is the workers. Now, I believe in being fair. Sometimes it's workers. You encounter workers who have bad attitude. You ain't telling me what to do, then go be self-employed, honey. Bye-bye. I mean, I work under someone. She's going to tell me what to do. That's called life. I mean, I have no problem with that. So there are people, now I believe in being fair, who are very difficult to deal with. They're very difficult for people to manage. They question to the point that it's not trying to understand, it's disrespect. It's, you just don't want to do anything that I'm telling you to do. Now, that's not okay either. But if adults cannot self-reflect, they can fall prey to lame excuses. I have a duty to do the best I can with people. However, the question for me needs to be, and this is the one I need to reflect on, have I done all that I can do to make the situation better with this student? That's in my job. There's nothing wrong with me asking myself that. It's easier to just put all the blame on the student. But it's okay for me to say, and I try to do this in my job, have I done everything I can do to make this situation better? And honey, I'm not above bribing them. I'll buy you ice cream at lunch. Okay, I'll do whatever. But, and I used this example recently in John 4, 7 through 10, if you wish to look there. I'll try that. Better hurry. There came a woman of Samaria to draw water. Well, guess who was there getting water too? Jesus saith unto her, give me to drink. For his disciples were gone away into the city to buy meat. Then saith the woman of Samaria unto him, how is it that thou being a Jew askest of me, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. Oh, that controversial Jesus. He ate with sinners, publicans, and now he's talking to a Samaritan woman. Ooh. Jesus answered and said unto her, if thou knewest the gift of God and who it is that saith to thee, give me to drink, thou wouldest have asked of him, and he would have given thee living water. Jesus crossed social and cultural barriers to engage someone others would have avoided. How would she have heard the message of Jesus? Was it just her responsibility to go to him? He went to her because she had a need, and he cared enough to do it. And that crossed barriers that people in society would have said were no-nos. Some people will not come to us, will they? We have to utilize proximity control, or we could just say proximity, better in this situation than control, to go to them. That lady was struggling. It's likely she would have never felt comfortable to go to Jesus herself. I would say that's quite possible. There are people who will never come to you themselves. Do you know there are students? This is a true story. I remember him and his buddy. I can see them plain as day. I had this little fellow in 7th grade. So if I was right here, this little fellow in 7th grade sat like right over here. Well, he was very quiet. He never spoke. So I moved him to the front, and he didn't shut up talking to me. I used to look at him and say, I'm going to move you to the back again. But what did it take? Proximity. Isn't that funny? Total. I mean for real. He had drawn me. He was obsessed with ligers, the cross between a tiger and a lion. Is that your age group? I can't remember. It might be your group. I think it was possibly your class that you went to school with around that time. But he loved ligers, and I found one the other day. He'd draw me ligers and give them to me. It was funny. But all I did was move him. Totally changed how he interacted with me, and I thought it was kind of funny. All it can take sometimes is just the ability to put yourself out there, put yourself there. So God help me. The lady was struggling, and it's likely she would never have felt comfortable to go to Jesus herself, considering the social and cultural implications of the time. She was a Samaritan and Jesus a Jew, and I would say it was likely she wouldn't have gone to him. But I love what Jesus did. He used the power of being present. He moved into her proximity, and he offered her life-giving and life-changing wisdom. But again, as we've mentioned, the easiest route always is avoid. Avoidance is just easy. It's much easier to speak, I know, as a teacher to a large group and hope the 2 or 3 who need to hear what you're saying, remember my example, that they hear it and make changes. However, it doesn't always bring about that, nor avoidance, bring about lasting change for those who need to change. I wish it did, because it'd make life a lot easier for all of us, for everybody involved. It'd be easier if those things happen. Jesus speaking to the Samaritan woman, to me, is a very powerful example. He went to where she was. So many people approached Jesus. I mean, we have countless, countless, that's not probably true. You could probably sit and count them up. I don't wish to do that. But if you do, have fun. But there are examples in the Bible where he would travel, and what happened? They thronged him. He drew a crowd, didn't he? People would come to him. But that same Jesus who drew a crowd went to her and spoke to her. Maybe he was just there and spoke to her, I don't know. But he was in her presence. In Luke 8:42, for he had only one daughter, about 12 years of age, and she lay a-dying. But as he went, this is Jesus, as Jesus went, the people thronged him. There are people who will approach on their own. And I think about that. There are people who are curious. My wife has encountered, largely at work, wouldn't you say, Rhonda Ray? She's encountered questions. People come and ask her questions. There are people who will seek that. They will seek for what they're searching for and what they're longing for on their own. But there are others who just need someone to simply make themselves present. They simply benefit from the proximity of somebody else. For me to wait and hope others just come around is probably not the best strategy, is it? I have to put, quote unquote, legs and feet to my witness to go to people. I need to go to them because they may never come to me. In 2 Timothy 2:24 and 26, and the servant of the Lord must not strive, but be gentle unto all men, apt to teach, patient, in meekness, instructing those that oppose themselves. If God peradventure will give them repentance to the acknowledging of the truth, and that they may recover themselves out of the snare of the devil, who are taken captive by him at his will. And as I read this verse, one of the verses in particular, in preparation for the lesson, the thing that hit me was the verse does not read, gentle unto some men. That just struck me. It doesn't read that way. It says, gentle unto all men. Boy, there are those who it's easy to be gentle with. And there are those who certainly make it feel like much more of a challenge. And that's just the nature of life. That's just life. But sometimes drawing close to those who are the most challenging can bring the greatest reward. It grows you as a person. I just know as a teacher, it makes you stretch yourself as an educator. It makes you look and seek for ways to connect that maybe you'd never thought of before. And there are some kids it's easy to connect to. Now, I'm nothing, and I acknowledge that. I understand that about myself. But I had a kiddo this year. This is a true story. Whoo, he had a bad reputation. I get tickled thinking about him because I thought he was kind of funny. But he had he was like a sheep. Bad reputation. He was the type of student, and this makes my heart so sad, and it makes me angry that he was the type of student, if you said his name, others were not above saying, you like him? He made himself that. I gotta be fair. A little bit of a challenge. He did a lot of aiding and abetting in that viewpoint of himself. He didn't help it all the time. But he's a kid. He's a human soul. He's a student you got to work with you have to work with him to get to know him. You have to work to cultivate a relationship where you can have even somewhat of a serious conversation with him. Could he be challenging? Oh, yes, to a degree. But it was largely depending on his setting, largely depending on the group setting or the particular space that he found himself in. But getting close to the student was much more rewarding, honestly, than getting close to kids who it's already easy to be close with. It's easy to love little Sally who sits and does everything Sally's supposed to. It's easy to love little Johnny who does all his work and everything's perfect and his locker's neat, and when you ask for a paper, he actually got it signed. That's great. But I have to tell you, a student sometimes where it takes work, it takes effort, it takes willingness to put yourself in their presence, to be present with them rather than put them aside and hope they manage. I am thankful I had the opportunity personally that I got to know him. Because for me, he doesn't know it. He blessed me. I hope I could be a blessing to him, but I'm nothing. But as I've referenced in education, we use that strategy called proximity control. When a few people become distracted, the facilitator, the teacher, the instructor, the manager, the whatever it can apply to, they don't always have to embarrass them or stop the lesson. Instead, they can move closer and continue with what they're doing. Life continues on. But that gentle presence is enough. It redirects their attention and it changes their behavior. Being present. And you think about that. presence is enough that it can literally change how somebody's behaving. And Jesus modeled something even greater. And this touches my heart to reflect about. Not only was he present, he was thronged. He went to those. He accepted and allowed himself to be with those who were of the greatest need. He drew near to sinners. He drew near to the hurting. And he drew near to the outcasts. And he didn't do it to shame them. But he did it to invite them. He did it to invite them. He invited them into a relationship with himself. His presence prepared hearts to receive his truth. You know what? When you use proximity to control, and you've moved yourself to a group, you've stood there, and they don't get the point. It happens. And you look at them, and they'll look at you, they're funny, and they'll smile. But they ain't getting it. Sometimes you have to make your presence known a little stronger. But if they know you've tried and you're just trying to do your part, they often accept it much better because you've done what you can do to try to get their attention. But being present, his presence sometimes probably felt a lot stronger, but he did it because it was necessary and he was there to help the people. As followers of Christ, we should do the same, shouldn't we? Rather than keeping distance from those who are struggling spiritually, you move toward them. And how do you move toward them? Now, when you have a group, I did summer camp for the past 2 weeks. And so I had some younger students. They're rising into middle school grades, one rising sixth grader, one rising seventh grader. But the others knew me. Well, that was easy. That's a piece of cake. The ones who knew me, I had another rising eighth grader who I didn't know or have. I remember seeing her at school. But the ones who knew me, guess what? How hard that was. It wasn't. I literally taught them. That was a piece of cake. They showed up, they knew me. And I had these 3 girls one week, and these 2 girls knew me because I taught them. And they would get kind of tickled because the other one didn't know me. Whew. She was something else. And I looked at her one day and I was like, little girl. In my life, you know, I don't remember they giggled then, but I just had to set some boundaries and say, now look, this isn't how this rolls, sweet pea. And they ended up being fine. I had an interesting first in my many years, and I'll wrap this up. Little girl I didn't know. Sometimes proximity isn't the best, is it, Rhonda Ray? I took the kids, I put in my advertisement, as I mentioned to some of you privately outside the church, I took the kids fishing. So they told me when I called the park place that they're under 16, no need for a fishing license. I'm like, oh, good. And I was like, no, I don't have one either. Oh, they're under 16. So apparently the person I spoke to wasn't aware that at the park, the adult must have a license. So I bought a temporary 10-day license. And so I got there. I'm like, okay, you two haven't fished. I was being friendly. You want to fish? Nah, we're good. I went, oh, you're fishing. I bought that license. You're going to hold a pole. So they held a pole. One of them more than held the pole. I was standing there close to the kid. This little girl showed her what to do. She was doing it, having a big time. She was cute as a button. And I was standing there just watching the kids. And all of a sudden I felt, oh. I'm like, oh, she hooked me. I said, what are you doing? I was fine, of course. But she hooked me. So, and of course, this other kid was so funny. She's like, oh, yeah, that's been a fish's mouth. You can get infections. Yeah, she made sure she told me that. I'm like, thanks, sweetie. Thanks, sweetie. Nah. So rather than keeping it distance, we move to those who are struggling. We move to them in love, gentleness, humility, and often with much patience, don't we? And we move to them in truth. We'll give it to Brother Mark.
Say we all got some things out of that lesson we can take with us from now on. That's really good. I guess we probably all thought of situations where a lot of these things that Brother Danny brought out would fit right in, no doubt, right into our own personal lives. So that's really good. I appreciate that this morning. Thank the Lord for all he did for us. We'll take just a little bit of a break and then move on to service shortly, Lord willing.